I guess we are ready to start. So whoever just joined, welcome. We are live with the Royal College of Art, and today we're going to talk about crafting a creative career. We're going to do this with an associate lecturer from Royal College of Art and also some students. For your question, please use the chat or the Q&A box. Well, Lassie, I think it's time to leave you the floor, and I stay connected and looking forward to receiving all the questions from the students connected.
Thank you, Federica. So I'm going to start by briefly introducing myself and sharing a little bit of my background and my experience of both studying in RCA and how my career has taken different parts from there. As Federica mentioned, I am an associate lecturer in design products department in Royal College of Art, where I myself graduated back in 2012. I joined this position last year, September. So education in higher education for me is a new thing, but there's a lot of, say, approximately 20 years of experience from the industry that I feel is very valuable for me to share with the students as well. So very much believe in that certain type of continuum with ex-students, ex-graduates coming back and sharing that knowledge, and it's like an growing community of students. And I think with what I'm going to share, that's going to become even more obvious how these connections in the uni and from there on are very much one key element in building up a successful career. I'm going to now share my screen and talk a little bit of my work. And I'm going to start by showing a project. Can everybody see this all right?
Not at the moment, not at the moment.
Hold on, just
Oh
okay
yeah,
now.
now yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to start by talking you about Velopresso, which is my company that I started with my student in after graduating from RCA. So this project started as a college project, and I think this is a good example where initially very conceptual and possibly quite quick, like a design exercise, for instance, can take you quite far. So I graduated from design products in 2012, and by the end of that year, we started the limited company to design and manufacture in Britain these pedal powered coffee trikes, and further down the line other related products. But this was the starting point, and it was a 6 weeks project where we were given a cheap £50 bicycle and a very broad brief of utilizing pedal power with combining a business idea around that. Back then, design products was a 2-year program, and this was just like I mentioned, a brief 6-week project where we built this very crude mock-up. At this stage, only feedback was from fellow students and Royal College of Art staff. Regardless, the feedback was very positive, and we decided to take it to the next level, which was taking it into our graduation project. So we spent the second year developing it further. And I think this is also a really interesting example how these initial ideas go through different phases, developing towards potentially a business of your own or other ways of building up the career from there on. So on the second year, we completely focused on developing this concept further by building one kind of a step further test model. And so July 2012, we presented the first concept of Velopresso in Royal College of Art graduation show. And RCA final show is definitely one very, very big potential springboard for your career, and you gain a lot of visibility, and that was the case with us as well. Interesting side note that we were extremely delighted that people in the show visiting thought that we were just providing coffee, instead of actually showcasing a final project. So they didn't consider us as students. They just thought we're serving. And we were delighted because that was all along the purpose. Instead of doing something mimicky, we all along had an idea that we want to design something that is feasible and we can actually build a business around it. We gained a lot of visibility in on websites and blogs and evening some paper newspapers like Evening Standard and The Guardian in that year, which led to the fact that we had just a placeholder website with a couple of sentences explaining what this concept is and a contact email. And what really led us to starting the limited company by the end of that year was the fact that we'd received thousands of emails from almost 90 countries by the end of the year 2012. And at that stage, we were recently graduated students working on some freelance projects that all also kind of came about from the contacts we made during our studies. And that was following that, there was a following 3 years pretty much very exciting and extremely challenging times as well, because starting a manufacturing business in the UK is definitely a challenge. I'm sure we will further down this webinar. We will talk a lot more about like how you finance and how you realize these ideas of starting your own business, your own practice, whether it's a studio or a manufacturing company. So we will go more in details to that, but briefly to summarize it, obviously starting fabrication requires a lot of money, so there's many different streams for that. We can discuss more about fundings, taking potential investors on board, pre-selling, um, and other venues. So following that graduation year, there was several years of further product development, which eventually led to a first production model. And in between this, there were three like test production versions that we sold to existing customers. We ended up setting up a factory space in East London where we had everything under one roof. We won awards. That's again going back to what I said earlier. That's one means of funding projects like this. We gain acknowledgement from UK top 100 manufacturers as a new kind of like upcoming manufacturers. This was in 2015 when we launched the production version, and from there we've been manufacturing these strikes, but also slowly as a small team building up the range of products that we supply and utilizing all the things that we've learned from what we've done over the years. So applying those same fabrication methods and kind of streamlining things, we've developed other similar or like products within that same subject space. So more conventional mobile bar on wheels, and a version on a e-assisted trailer, a version of the bar with cold drink system built in. So this is something that I've been doing since 2012. Obviously, I've been working on other projects as well. as a freelancer, and it has taken me to quite interesting directions. I'm going to share a few images of that. So I've been involved in fair amount of a number of public art installations, and this is again, I think, kind of like continuing from my build up experience with running my own business. So as you've obviously seen with the imagery, that there's been a lot of steel fabrication, which has led me to, in the past 14 years, to become fairly knowledgeable expert in steel fabrication in different scenarios. So that has alone opened me another path within my practice to become specialized in steel fabrication, and that being applied both to commercial products and art installation. This is another project we did a couple of years ago. Is again heavily involves steel fabrication, but also physical computing. And so this is a project we did for the social enterprise. It's a voting bin that encourages people to bin their rubbish instead of throwing it on the streets. Here's another art installation project where my role was very much in technical design and managing welding teams. So it kind of again shows an example how one thing leads to another. So I've ended up being more of like a manager role, where I can apply the knowledge that I've gained from different parts of steel fabrication into different venues. So I guess specifically about Velopresso, I could talk much more. I'm gonna stop here for now. Surely we'll return back to further details as they are relevant to questions that we will discuss with our panel, and any questions that any of people joining in will have. So I'm going to now very briefly introduce you to our speakers. Just a sec, I'm going to stop sharing first. Okay, so today there will be 4 other speakers joining me. First one is Dax Goel, architect and product designer, graduate from Design Products in 2015. He is a founder and principal architect of OSA Studio based in Delhi. We also have Oishi Dutta, multidisciplinary artist and art director, 2025 graduate from Contemporary Art. We have Lucy Lecrandois, designer and engineer, co-founder and CTO of Omnilabs Research, and she's a graduate from Innovation Design Engineering 2024. And also Luis Chaim, co-founder of Resting Reef, designer and ocean advocate IDE, graduate from 2022. I will leave it to you to give a further introduction to the point you wish, and we will then take the conversation from there. Maybe a few words from each of you. Do you want to start, Takesh?
Yeah, I'll start.
We're not able to hear you. We could hear you at the very beginning, then no, not at the moment.
Hello.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Laksh Goel, and I run my own independent architecture practice in Delhi. And my journey at the RCA was a little different because I was also shifting from doing a master's in product design and not in architecture conventionally, but That led to a lot of interesting projects at the RCA and a lot of more opportunities for me, including I displayed at the London Design Festival, but our studio also became a partner with the London Design Festival last year. And so it was such an interesting mix of people where I worked with furniture designers, artists, and all sort of different multidisciplinaries to sort of bring them together and learn from them. And I think, yeah, the journey has been quite interesting.
And can you maybe just with few words describe a little bit about or tell us a little bit about your current practice, the OSA studio, which I believe is in Delhi, right?
Yes. So it still works primarily with architecture and interiors, but we also have now expanded into products, light fixtures, and other design furnitures. And also every now and then we try to keep exhibitions. And also personally, I also visit like various universities here in India to give lectures about the same and help students grow and build their own careers.
Brilliant. Thank you, Daksh.
Thank you.
Oishi, welcome.
Hello, hi. My name is Oishi Roy Datta. I hope you can all hear me.
Yes.
So basically, I did my course in contemporary art practice. Initially, I was a bit confused about which course to do because I was originally, and I still do, majorly like commercial work within advertising and social media. And the contemporary art practice is completely different from that, very much entering into the contemporary art field, gallery shows, etc. And so my practice took a big turn there as well, and I really got to focus on my own creativity, things that I really want to make, what it means to actually have a research base for making artwork, and how to actually make work which is thoughtful and insightful and is relevant to the contemporary landscape. Most of my artworks kind of talk about the intersection of the organic and the digital, and how digitally manufactured desire affects our organic presence. After the during the RC, I got to do lots of shows. I got to do a show at the Somerset House. I got to do a presentation at the South Bank Center. I also got to show my short film at the Genesis Theatre, which was my first real life movie screening, which is quite exciting. And I also worked on the London Design Festival actually with Daksh. We curated the show together, and I got to exercise my curatorial muscles there, work with people from all over the world. So it's been quite exciting, my time at RCA. Currently, I'm working on a show that's going to happen in July in Seoul. And I've really started to focus on my contemporary art practice more, actually build my own body of work that can be then showed to shows, applications for residencies, etc. And freelancing with musicians and filmmakers. And currently, I'm working with Harvard University till February for the India Harvard conference. That's me.
Oh, sorry, Lucy.
Yay. Hello, I'm Lucy. So I graduated a year and a half ago from Innovation Design Engineering. Prior than that, my background was like more technical. I did like a master in mechanical and material engineering in France, and studied a little bit in Milan. And yeah, and since I graduated, I joined like two companies that like align with my values, which are like environmental and social impact, and trying to work in like both, even though both are overlapped. So I work for one company that is also a company from RCA called Carbon Cell, that is creating a biodegradable foam to replace polystyrene. I can have a picture of that if anyone is interested. And then I co-founded a medtech company with someone from GID 2 years before me. GID was a course of global innovation design. I'm sure Louise will talk about it after. And so we co-founded a company that works on stroke rehabilitation. So how we can mix music therapy with extended reality and robotics to encourage people to exercise the upper limb in the long term, and connect from the very start, like hospitals to patient, even outside of medical context. And in general, I've been doing a lot of also small job design, like teaching assistant, working in a workshop, and things like that around arts and education. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Lucy. And last but not least, Louise.
Hi, yes, so I'm Louisa Skyam. I'm originally from Oslo, but I've been in London for 9 years now. I graduated from a dual master's called Global Innovation Design, which I think doesn't run anymore. So my interest always been materials and sustainability. And during the masters, I met my co-founder Aura Murillo, and now we have a startup that we've been doing full time since graduating over 3 years ago. And it all started during RCA and Imperial College London. This was the dual master. And we were part of a competition called Terracarta Design Lab. And we submitted a concept to this called Resting Reef. And we chose it as our major project going forward. And we just became finalists in the competition. We didn't win, but we had received a lot of other recognitions and starting getting some awards and publications. So we decided to do it full time after graduating. And we applied for an Innovate UK grant that we got, which allowed us to do it full time because we had salary and some money to prototype further. And yeah, since then we've had 6 Innovate UK grants. So up until this month, Aura and I have had all the shares of the company and full control. Last year we were invited by the World Design Conference at the Barbican here in London, invited by Innovate UK, talking about design and innovation and businesses. And yeah, we've had multiple design awards, and we are currently restoring reefs in Bali, coral reefs in Bali. And yeah, Resting Reef is an impactful memorial service that allows families having their loved ones' ashes be made into beautiful reef structures that we place onto the seabed to restore endangered marine habitats. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Louise. Right. So there's been quite a few interesting points that you've mentioned already. So we'll be moving on to questions, and I'm also going to be going back to a few points that you've made. So, I mean, you've already been discussing a little bit about like the first step after graduating, and I guess there's also a little bit of indication that how you decided whether that was the right path. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, Louise, it sounds like it's we have pretty similar kind of like route in the sense that it starts with a college project and there's recognition or there's feedback and also that realization that there's something to it, but you don't necessarily know where it's going to take you. How did you, when you initially had this concept delivered as part of Terra Carta, did you, yeah, I don't know, how did, was it clear to you that this is what we want to be doing after graduating, or was that almost more like a development that you took a next step and saw, just look where it was going to take you?
Yeah, I would say one of the strongest indicators for us to continue was all the conversations we had during user research, interview with experts, and there seemed to be a really clear like positive response, like, you know, this should exist in a sense. And then we were thinking, you know, if we're not bringing it forward with our vision, who's going to take it, right? So it was more like, okay, should we just jump into this adventure? And of course, needing some funding or a bit of stability to continue after graduating. So the grant, I would say, was crucial for us because maybe we gave ourselves 6 months to apply for things or try to get the ball rolling. But if not, maybe we would have to start applying for job, and maybe that resting reef would be more of like a side business or a hobby, and see for that big opportunity to reveal or come alive after. But yeah, I would say like really listening to the market and the experts. And also we got a feature in Fast Company and Design while we were like still studying, and that kind of helped, like there was some interest in the world for this to kind of exist. So yeah, listening to those hints kind of in the world.
Would you got a follow-up question to this, because I think it was something quite interesting you mentioned. Would you say that it was quite crucial in terms of the kind of for you to continue further to get that grant at that very stage? Because like you said, as a newly graduate, creative, you can't endlessly just kind of like after college just kind of like dwell on ideas and like slowly build up things. There's that pressure of finding a job and starting earning money and earning a living, to the very least. Do you think that it could have gone a completely different direction if you didn't have that initial grant to kind of kickstart your things?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. We were also fortunate to have both support from Imperial College and the RCA, and both, let's say, universities have a very strong name and reputation. So there was always like a willingness to respond to our emails or connect with us, and I would say also the Terracotta Design Lab competition. It was the first year it was hosted or run, and so Sir Johnny Ives and then Prince Charles were quite involved with it, and their names and appearance at these kind of competitions also helped to get, let's say, a bit of global recognition on the projects presented there. So yeah, I would definitely say like the university's name and the network it carries is very beneficial when you go out there and try to kind of be recognized, or doors may be open because you have a bit of like a recognized institution behind you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started, pretty much all of you answered that question, that what were your first steps, but is there anything you want to add, Dax, Oishi, or Lucy, regarding that, whether you felt like that was the right path, or was it clear to you, or how much there's maybe coincidence along the way?
Yeah, I think personally, as I said, that I was an architect and still am, and I decided to do a completely different master's degree. So it was definitely a risk that I was taking at that time, but looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, the kind of things there are things that happen at the RC that I think in all our journeys that we couldn't plan. Like it's impossible to sort of tell you what happens at the RCA in that sense, because the networks that you find there and the different disciplines that you see there, your life can go in any direction. Sometimes you just find that one thing, that one idea, and that sticks, and then that becomes your career, right? So that thing is something that is quite real. And even for me, like I had never really made products. I had never really worked with in exhibitions or with artists, but now it's almost has become like a daily thing where we interact and we exchange ideas, and that I take some of them back into my architecture as well. And a lot of the things that they come up with is something that I can never think about, and it has opened so many horizons in terms of ideas. So
Yeah. Okay, great. So I see that Lucy, have you got anything to add to that, or shall we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I think similarly, definitely there's certain risks about doing any amount of higher education, especially for an international student. But given that factor, for sure, it's not just the fact that you're at the RCA, which is, of course, a big component of it, but also the fact that you're in London. And there is a lot, specifically in the fine art and contemporary art space, there's just something or the other happening all the time. And you have access to shows, you have access to do shows, you have access to be in shows. And if you wanted to just do a group show with yourself and your friends, you could just do that because you have access to resources through like multiple organizations that gives you a bursary to do a show or gives you space for free and stuff like that. And a lot of the shows that do happen across the year are self-funded and self-initiated. And just
Mhm.
another point of this is one of the reasons I got the Somerset House show was because one of the curators were just walking through the CAP building and they found my work and they were interested. Um, and at the point, I did not know that the show was going to be at Somerset House, but it's one of the biggest venues in London, and I only got that opportunity because I was there within the RCA working in my studios. So these kinds of things just keep happening, and it's quite interesting how what can happen without you actually planning for all of this, as long as you're like kind of putting in the work day to day and just have a prepared body of work to present.
Mm.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
okay, I would say, I mean, I think everybody probably answered the question. We were also lucky to get a grant almost when we finished RCA. So it helped a lot for launching a company. And on the other side, the show was really important as well as like, it's more like when you finish RCA, you get like different options, but also it's not going to fall from nowhere. You also need to chase options and opportunities. And so, I mean, I've got a job that was offered from someone who visited the show and loved my solo project that has nothing related to what I'm doing now. So there was like all good opportunities, like momentum on like the right moments, and also very beneficial to have a network from our course, like so we'll can focus on like things we can just get about space that are accessible and like different experience of students as
Yeah, we're gonna get back to that a little bit more as well about the grants and like different ways of funding. Um, when it comes to your time in RCA, how would you say that like how have the skills that you learned during your studies helped shape the way you work today, both like creatively and professionally? What would you kind of like describe as the key skill sets that you gained during your studies, and how has that helped you in your career path?
I would say a skill set I learned during the masters was I learned from another classmate that was really, really good at just reaching out to people, like not think you can change the world or have impact from your desk alone. Like send emails out to experts or even just, going out in person and finding people to find the answers. And even with your university email, there's definitely much more goodwill because you're a student, and businesses and companies and leaders, they don't see you, let's say, as a competitor or a threat because you're doing research and it's a concept. And unfortunately, a lot of projects stays as university projects, which I think much more should be encouraged to be brought out in the real world. Another aspect I learned through the competition, which I wouldn't say was specifically taught during our course, but it was to understand the financing parts or the business parts behind your idea. Because as designers, you're very much programmed to be problem solvers. But you can't really solve a problem if your, let's say, solution can't even finance itself to exist. So equally, as you're thinking about, let's say if it's climate change or mental health or the great solution you're thinking about, you equally need to think about who's paying for this, how is it being funded, is it an NGO or is it a business that is earning money and profitable? Do you need investors? And there you kind of start thinking about how does this thing come alive and actually have the impact that I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I would say our courses are very project-based, especially because they are masters. So it's not like undergrad when you're gonna learn specific skills and it's like, oh, this is a CAD course, learn some CAD design. Uh, we are all, I mean, most of us has like some work experience. So we're coming with like a lot of different skills and it's more the way of like how do you leverage all of them to create projects that have an impact, I would say. And then there are especially like it's like more as like self-led as like different skills that you want to learn. And I would say it's a bit different, but like my practice was very physical during RCA. So like all the things learned in workshops from technicians would play like an important role in what you can be doing after. And also obviously learning for peers and from different courses when you can go and just walk around the building and find someone who know what you can, well, have a skill that you want to learn.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry. For the CAP course, I will say that similarly to what just Lucy said, it's not that they teach you how to paint or to draw or how to work Photoshop, but on that end, there are multiple workshops and technical workshops that are running throughout the year that you can just sign up to and actually learn the A to Z of whatever software that you're interested in. Apart from that, specifically coming from like a contemporary art course, they really teach you how to present yourself as an artist. What the skill that we learned is how to present our work, how to talk about our work, and how to kind of have a well researched background and something to go back to every time anyone asks you a question. So I think it removes a lot of the fumbling and a lot of the kind of questions or doubts that you have about your own practice, because they really encourage research and they encourage reading and kind of interacting with other people. And then we have a rigorous critique cycle. You have personal tutors who kind of help you personally on your work. So all of this really just helps to kind of build yourself as an artist, build a practice, and most importantly build a vocabulary, where you can present yourself as an artist very effectively and communicate your ideas and your concept very clearly. So you just seem as a lot more prepared and a lot more um, like a well-made artist in that case.
Yeah, that those are really good insights. Dax, have you got anything to add to this? Kind of feel like
I
there's
think I think everybody has answered that pretty well.
yeah, I think it is a good point saying that as a master's studies, it is very different from undergraduate, where it's that limited time that you have here is not really dedicated into teaching further skills, because we are already like in a very interdisciplinary environment where regardless your practice, the things that you guys mentioned earlier apply to all the different departments. It's more about, like you said, um, that it's very self-led. It's about proactivity, and equally those are skills. They are not like skills that are being thought from books, but is very much learned in being present. And we've earlier discussed about all the different uh, opportunities with attending a competition or applying for a grant. All that requires certain ability to justify your project or clearly communicate your findings, and the emphasis really is very much on research rather than where sometimes in undergraduate projects it might be more of a focus on learning certain skills, and that's not like the emphasis is not on that anymore. Is in master's studies and further from that. um I think to summarize that is very much like tapping into the resources, making connections and proactively applying for grants and joining exhibitions, and it's very kind of like self-directed in that sense. Those are all good answers, thank you guys. um and I think we can all agree to those. Let's talk about challenges. um I would be surprised if there weren't any. I can share some insights, but let's start with you guys. And I think what's been mentioned from the beginning is that we also want to be very open and honest about, like, not just painting a beautiful picture that it's all just straightforward and easy and amazing, but there's always challenging, and finance is definitely one thing that I'm sure that we all have to face. So please share your experience in that sense, or if there's any other challenges.
Maybe I can start. I think just taking off from what Oishi said, that, for international students, it's, I think, a little bit different experience than probably somebody who's at home. For us, I mean, just finding more than just the financial things, just finding your own footing and starting off in a new city where, people are different. Your language might be different, and just starting off new and getting on with that, and then also with the college, and it's just 1 year course, right? So it's a lot of things that you have to manage, but at the same time, that is something that also you learn, I think, is like how you manage your finances, your time, especially the weather. I mean, I think an underrated thing about London is how the weather can change at any day. It'll be sunny one day, and then and poof, it'll be rainy the next time. So it just a lot of things that you need to adjust to. But also, I would say that there are a lot of things that are happening at the RCA and within London that can help you with the finances as well. We talked about sponsorships. There are a lot of brands that are ready to sponsor exhibitions, things that you do. There are a lot of grants that you can apply to. RCA always gives out, even to this day, they send out emails for open calls, and like the Dubai Design Week or the London Design Week or whatever. And those are a lot of times paid for if you apply to them at the right time. And also RCA does have the hardship funds and extra funds that you can apply to if you're facing any issues financially and personally. So I think there are a lot of ways to tackle it, but yes, you have to be a little bit strong to sort of make it through.
Just kind of jumping off of that, London is a very expensive city, so even making new work, rent, stuff like that, everything is like a mathematical project because materials are expensive, printing is expensive, but you get subsidized printing and subsidized materials from the school. Other than that, there's also the fact that you're coming to the RCA where people from all over the world and also all walks of life come there. So, for instance, just in my course, there were people who were like 19, 20 years old, and then there were people who were like 60, 70 years old. So there's like a breadth of experience and skill that's present within the school, which can often like lead to certain like you feel like you're a little bit behind often because you're just people who got like 20 years of experience and now they're here doing an MA. So those are, some things that you kind of come across, and it can be quite intimidating to figure out how to actually ask for help or figure out what you want to learn from said people. um, at that point, I think what helped me was to realize that everybody's here to learn and to maybe upscale or change their life in a certain way or have a pivot. And the things that I was intimidated by and the things that I felt was pushing me behind became the things that I learned so much, and also became the reasons I got to learn so much from my peers and learn from their experiences and such. So it's kind of like a 50-50 here and there. But if you kind of reach out enough and you ask for help and ask for resources enough, there are more or less as solutions available.
Yeah, I can highlight something I saw quite a lot of my classmates struggled with. And I think even now with the 1 year course, it might be even more enforced, but it's the idea that your main focus is what portfolio you want when you graduate, or like what project should you work on, and is it leading you to your dream job? And you might not even know what the next stage or what that job should look like. So you're kind of going over and over in your head if you're not choosing the right project or concept, and is it leading you where you want? And it can be a bit self-destructive, I would say, overthinking that. So maybe it's a bit controversial to say, but if you have the mindset and opportunity to like really listen to yourself and explore the things you're interested and show the best side of yourself during that year, and especially to your peers, because that's where the opportunities will come most likely when you graduate. And it's the ones you've been in teamwork with, they see how you work, they see how you're passionate, how you show up, how you deliver things on time. They see how you are dedicated to your own project and how you solve problems. And when you all graduate, they will think of you if they're building a team for a certain startup, or maybe they are in a company and they're looking to hire in that company, and they would easily recommend you because they remember how you were to work with as like a nice person, but also hardworking and passionate. And if you have kind of listened to your heart and your gut through the course, then you will more likely be associated with that person also when you graduate. So those opportunities or doors that might open is the connection to who, like what you were passionate about, and they would want to kind of bring you along on that journey afterwards. So yeah, I think that's a tip from me.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we can all agree from our experience that if you don't really follow your true passion and try to direct your creative work towards, whether it's about fame or money or any other reason that are not really, if what you do doesn't come from ambition, it can be a very, very hard journey, because building up your own career, and especially if you're starting your own studio and really end up working for yourself, it's a lot of work, and you really have to love that. So I think that's a good point, that be true to yourself rather than try to I don't know, impress anyone, or do something that you think that is expected from you.
And
Lucy, have you got anything to add to that?
I just want to add, like, we have hired people from our course that were under us, and also a person now from IDE that was recommended from someone that were in the class with her. So it's, yeah, word of mouth and having that kind of reputation, I think, will open doors for you.
Absolutely.
But I would say like be also realistic. It's a mix of like when you're talking about challenging what Oishi answer and like what Louise and Laz you just say is like obviously be who you want to be at the maximum, but also as London is expensive, you also need to be realistic. And I think we're a pretty good example of like saying, oh, we survive in London after graduation between like 15 years old, then we graduated, like 3 years we graduated. But like the truth is like a lot of people in our cohort are not finding necessarily job that they want to have, or like they don't find necessarily the ideal job directly after graduation. You don't necessarily have the money, the time to get your own practice directly after graduation. So I would say there's also like a notion of pragmatism, and it's like we're not selling you the dream. Like RCA is not gonna like turn your dream into reality just magically. Yeah, just wanted to add this nuance. Obviously, there's a lot of good way, and like if you fight a lot, you increase your chance of getting somewhere, but it's not automatic.
Thank you, Lucy. I think that's a very valuable point that I think we already discussed things that have happened to us, that we can surely all agree that this RCA opens up a lot of potential doors. Being in London opens up a lot of potential pathways for your career. It also is a matter of coincidence, and you're absolutely right that it's not a guarantee that you will just land your dream job after RCA. So that's good to keep in mind. And there's real challenges that you have to overcome to make your career dream come true. Yeah, thanks for that. It's a valid point. Moving forward, I think My next question is about networking and collaboration, but rather than being a question, I believe that we can all agree on the importance of networking and collaboration. So let's maybe just elaborate on that. How have you approached it, and have you got any maybe good examples of how certain connections or like we discussed earlier, being proactive and being out there has helped you with your career path?
Yeah, I mean, if I have to start, I mean, just like there were so many exhibition opportunities for everybody, even though they were not from the same field. Like, for example, I also got to exhibit at Somerset House, even though I'm not an artist and I was in design products, but one of the curators saw my work at one of the exhibitions in that was held in the RCA, in the premises itself. And they were like, would you be ready to do, like, would you be happy to do a show with us and show the product there? And I was like, sure. And I was among all artists and I showed my work there just through networking. And I got to know about the CEO and all the people that came there. And it was quite interesting. And since then, I realized that RCA is a very good place to sort of network and put your work out there. There are multiple meetings that everybody has, and exhibitions and etc. And coming back to like London Design Festival as well, I mean, that opportunity also came because I reached out to the managing team there, saying that I'm a student at RCA and I would like to have a talk with you and see how it can do something with us. And I had this idea of raising like brown voices and ideas from India back at home to in the London environment. And they really liked that idea of sort of putting our voices out there. And this was the same time that the anti-immigration protests were happening all around London. So it was almost like a way of pushing back and fighting against the system. And they really liked the idea and they gave us the partnership and we were able to find a space and do the show with the LDF. So it's a lot of things that come together, of course, but just those tiny increments of like building that confidence of putting your work out there, yourself out there, and talking to people from different fields through RCA and even without RCA in London itself, because it gives you the confidence. It gives you the confidence that you are from the RCA, so people wouldn't stop you as much, or people wouldn't judge you for your work, and they would really be interested in your work. So that in itself gives you a lot of confidence to put your work out there, and that does open doors. At least it did for me.
Just kind of adding on to that, I would also say that it's also incredibly important in the contemporary art space and the design space to network, and we all know that. And so, as I already said, Somerset House show also happened because a curator was just in the studios and they happened to like my work. But then, similarly, the show that I'm working on for July that's going to happen in Seoul is also from a curator who was at the RCA while I was there. So we got really acquainted with the curating course, and these are also still people who reach out to us for shows, and they're people who still reach out to us for any other support. I'm currently working on a publication for another curator who was also at the RCA while we were there. And then, of course, London Design Festival also happened because Daksh and I were, in the same school and we had similar ideas. So we worked on that together. So a lot of the things happen because you're there, and people are just genuinely looking forward to working with you and knowing what you think, and they want to kind of collaborate with their fellow peers. And in that end, we also found a lot of people from other UK, like other London universities, who wanted to work with us and who wanted to be involved with whatever we were doing. A lot of opportunities, such as getting to show in the Genesis Theatre or putting up a show in Theatreship. These all happened because we were RCA students, and they had a certain amount of confidence in the fact that we could pull something like this off. And just asking for funding for all these things and then asking for grants or opportunities just becomes just that much more accessible. I'm not going to say that people just kind of give you whatever you ask for just because you're from RCA. That's not true, but it definitely makes them stop and look at what you're saying, at least. So it gives you like this longer span of attention than what you'd usually get. So these connections also like pan out. A lot of the things that happen because of RCA probably won't happen the moment you graduate and somebody gave you like a giant grant amount to work on your project. But these are things that kind of unfold over the years as well. And I've noticed that I got a lot of these kinds of feedbacks and these kinds of opportunities as we had graduated from RCA. It's been a few months, or it's been 6 months, and kind of people come back to you and they remember you and they ask you whether you're available for these kinds of things. So yeah.
Can I add something? Yeah, I would
Yes.
say there
Yeah.
is a mix of like, I feel like, yeah, there is a mix of like direct opportunities, such as like I'm working for a company that was the year above me and co-founding a company with someone I bumped into the library and happened to be doing something that I was doing as well. But there's also a lot of like random um meetup, which are really great. I met a lot of people in the workshop. I spent like almost 6 months in the meetup workshop, and someone I met there recommended me for like another scholarship, and then also we ended up selling him some material in one of the company we work because he's a sculptor, but there was no real overlap. It's just like we happened to be in the same workshop at the same time, and I was publishing a publication that someone submit an open call for during the course. So I feel it's a mix of like plan meetings and also a lot of random one that then going to be very nice to enrich your cultural life in London, because it's always easier to go to show when you know that people are showing rather to go to random show, because there are so many events happening in London that kind of having your Aussie network is doing your creation for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you. At this point, I'm aware of timing, Federica. It's a really interesting conversation, and I think I've got a lot of further questions, but wary of the time limit here. Do you feel that it's a good time to look into the Q&A, see what?
Perhaps we can start, and then of course for the students connected, first of all, I wanted to thank you because I can see that you already started to type some answers, which is great. Maybe we can go through to some of the questions, of course, for the audience. If you want our panelists to talk more about one of the points, absolutely. There was a question more regarding like the admission. So maybe if we can share some sort of like deadline and requirement, if there is any sort of key dates that maybe we want to remind. So one of the question was basically what the entry requirement and if scholarships would be available for international students. So I don't know if maybe Lassie is the website the best place or if there is anything.
In all honesty, I'm apologies, I don't have those answers in front of me. As a new part-time, I haven't been involved in the application process, but there's a lot of information online, and if you can't find something, you can always reach out to the contact emails and ask further questions. I believe the first round of applications has ended. I believe. I would still please check it, and there's a further opportunity still this year to apply. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I answered that. I was student ambassador when I was at RCA, so I've been to a lot of like application process advice. But there are also like specific webinars that are dedicated for that. So like if you struggle to find information on the website, each school and each program has like their webinar, and then for specific requirements, and then the whole school has like a webinar for like helping with portfolio. It's not portfolio review; it's just like helping with what is how to submit it. So you can check, and then you also can talk with students for support and for staff.
Perfect. And we're also going to follow up after this webinar with some messages, and I believe 17th of March could be a key deadline. So another question is for Darsh, is about, was your idea always to open a studio in India? And then you mentioned that you shift to architecture. What made you decide?
Yeah, I mean, I was already typing the answer, but so I already had a studio in Delhi before I left. So it was I was already running it for 2 years, and I had a small team back here in Delhi. So Even during my time at the RCA, I was sort of working remote because of the time difference. So I was able to manage work back at home. And I finished up a few projects when I was at the RCA. So that's how I was able to sort of sustain financially in London as well. But also, I did not shift to architecture. I shifted from architecture to product design because I was sort of questioning if I want to change my scale from architecture to, let's say, furniture and lights and all of that stuff. And now I'm working in the intersection of both of them, where in some projects we get to design the furniture, and in most of the projects we get to design the interiors and architecture.
Perfect. Well, we talked about career before. One of the question is how to create a startup that can serve the major you have, especially if with the goal of having clients from international market. So I don't know if any of you went through this.
I think it depends a bit where you want to register your startup and where you, let's say, intend to live or work from. One advisor we had, he said, as a startup, either you are based where your market is or where your operations is. So let's say you have a fashion company and your market is Italy, but you produce things in India, then you should be in either of those places and potentially not in the US or UK. So maybe that can help a bit with deciding where you want to incorporate. I know it isn't too easy to get visa in the UK these days when you graduate. So yeah, I don't know how it works if you're allowed to incorporate a company on a graduate visa in the UK and what happens, let's say, if you have to leave after 2 years, or are you self-employed? Like, maybe Lucy knows.
No, you can. You can't on a student visa, but you can on a graduate visa. And if you leave, well, it's just like it's a mess if you lose your visa after 2 years. But it happened. And in that scenario, well, someone else probably needs to be director of the company, but technically you can be incorporated and be a director without living in the country.
We hope this answered the question. Of course, if there is anything else, type in the chat. Question about portfolio. If we can give any sort of applying on advice on the portfolios when applying for a master or just in general.
I think it's quite different for across the courses. But personally, for my course or any of the arts and humanities courses, which would be sculpture, painting, contemporary art, jewelry, glass, metal, etc., is they don't expect you to be like perfect as such, but they expect you to have a really good idea what it is that you want to do, and they want to see your process. It really differs from country to country even in these application processes, because in my experience with applying in the US, they were really more interested in the end result and what you think. But in the UK, and specifically in the RCA, they really want to see how you think. They really focus on the process. They really focus on the research of the work that you're doing. For instance, for the RCA application in the portfolio section, you get like 5 PDF areas where you can upload, even if it can be 5 projects or like 5 groups of work. And these are essentially for you like an opportunity for you to actually describe the process of the end result. A lot of the times it doesn't even have to be an end result, it can be like a speculative project, but they want to see that you know how to do your research, that you know what it is that you're interested in, and also they want to know that you have a certain base already established for you to kind of finalize and polish that in your MA. So it's about like how you're positioning your work and how you're talking about it and discussing it. And a lot of the people who then go to the RCA completely change their formats, they completely change their medium, they completely change their areas of interest. But the important part in your portfolio is to show that you know how to kind of work towards the thing that you want. You have clarity in thoughts, you have clarity in ideas, and they really need to be able to see that in your processes.
Yeah, I would echo that. I would say in UK in general, like I did my undergrad at Goldsmiths, which I would say a little bit of a pre-version of what RCA also, the way RCA teaches. And it's all about kind of guiding yourself in the unknown and making decisions that you believe in or can back. So not relying on your tutors, for example, like in your decision making. Because if something goes wrong or you're questioned, why did you choose this versus this? You would have to justify it and not say, well, my tutor suggested it or something. So I think, yeah, like at least at Goldsmiths, it was very much about cardboard and not a refined thing. And I would say, and I had those type of things in my portfolio when I applied to RCA. It was a lot of like prototyping and not, a super spexy, perfect prototype or a render or perfect in graphic design. They want to understand if there's depth in your thinking and you're able to navigate difficult spaces and decision making on your own, of course, with support from very talented tutors and professors. But yeah, it's a self-guided degree you're doing.
Lasse, is there anything that you wanted to add on the portfolio or?
Yeah, well, I think you covered that really well. More, on a more practical side, what I would add to that is that indeed it's more about looking for that ability to think and like conceptualize things and rather than showing just polished work. And I think what's quite common is that what I would give an advice as well is that be really critical about what projects you think that people who are reviewing a portfolio benefit from seeing, and be critical about projects that you might be personally really in love with, but they don't really serve anything extra. So it's also not about quantity, it's about quality. So rather than including every project that you've been into, is not really showing that you have it shows that you've been involved in a lot of projects, but that's not the best way of showing like your skills. It's more about showing that, okay, I've been involved in this many things, even being an undergrad student or recently graduate. So it's crucial to be really critical about your own work as well, what fits in and what's worth showing. And keeping in mind that there's so many portfolios to go through that you really need to kind of like make that good expression, like first expression. And yeah, showing the process is really important.
Perfect, thanks. We have time for a last question. And this is an interesting one. What things would you do differently at university and in your experience there? I saw that Darshan was starting to type. Maybe we can ask him, and then, of course, if the other wants to add anything, they can.
Yeah, I think I would, if I could go back, I would give myself a little more time to sort of absorb London in general before I enter into college, because I came like just the very week where I was coming like or entering college. I think the first few months takes, at least I took the first few months to realize where I am, what I'm doing, and sort of gathering all those thoughts and uh, all of that. And if you can sort of be, accustomed to the practices of London or people in London or how London works, I think it just helps you to move into college quite quickly. And I would also recommend, even if you don't have a clear thought of what you want to do at college or what you want to research about, just know for a fact that 1 year is a very, very less time. It might seem like a long time. It goes by like in a blink of an eye. So you wouldn't have a lot of time to sort of ponder on those topics for very, very long, because at the end, you would have to submit whatever you do and whatever you work on. So maybe if you have like just a broader theme of what you want to, or what you're interested in, maybe just list them down if you're interested in climate change, if you're interested in nature, art, or whatever that is, or whatever topic that is, it would be nice if you have those broad ideas very sort of, um, like have them quite stark if in the starting of it, if you can.
Oishi?
Yeah, hi. I would say that there are a couple of there are tons of resources that are available at the RCA, and I spent the first couple of months just trying to figure out what I can or cannot access. Mostly because I was also quite intimidated in wanting to access these things because I almost felt like I wasn't allowed, but that's not the case. So like the glass workshop, I was one of the things that I really wanted to access, but by the time I did, um, there were questions of funding and time that I just could not figure out. And that was probably one of the things I should have done very early on because that's something that's very interesting to me. Just accessing every workshop that I could, just going into the studios more often, in the photography studios and such more often, because I didn't know whether or not how to access like the studios and how just like go in and out and work in the dark rooms as much as I wanted to. Um, so I think that's one of the things. And secondly is asking your tutors to talk to you more, because even if you have these scheduled sessions where you kind of have feedback from them, one-on-one feedback, you can always all just drop them an email, or even drop an email to a separate tutor to have a chat with them and talk to them and have a conversation. You can even do that like cross courses. You can also like you reach out to the tutor of a different course and say that your experience is very relevant. Similarly, for me, working from during my cross RCA, I was in being digital, which was like the topic of my segment. The tutor who was leading it, his work was very, very poignant to my own research, and I only started speaking to him till at the very end of the course because I felt like I wasn't allowed to talk to him about my own personal work, which is not correct. You can literally all of this is for you to access, so all you have to do is ask and kind of sometimes pursue people, go after the technicians like maybe 2 or 3 times to like let them know that you really want to do this. So that'll be my one thing, because in the year you can't really explore literally everything. You kind of have to just know that you can, and also like streamline what you should depending on where your work's going.
Perfect, thanks. Well, we coming towards the end of our live webinar. I wanted to thank our panelists, Lasse, for the great moderation, and all of you for being connected and for your valuable question. So just before closing, I wanted to ask you all if there is any sort of advice or tips that you'd like to share with the audience before ending the session. Lasse, perhaps I can start with you, and then we can ask the other panelists if they want to add on anything.
Well, okay, that's a in a way I can see that as a very broad question because I think there's many topics that we've touched base. But I would say that being curious and being proactive gets you a long way. Let's summarize it like that.
I know it's hard because a lot has been said and a lot should be covered, but anyone else, anything that feel could be useful?
Just like really practical advice specifically to international students. If you're planning to come to the RCA, one of the things that you should do is look for housing really early on, because the longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. And also, it takes just a really, really long time to find housing, especially if you're coming from a different city, a different country, and you don't have housing and you're kind of just home jumping or living in like an Airbnb. It just can get really hectic while you're already working and making new friends and meeting new people and doing classes as a. So it's a good idea to start looking almost immediately that you get your acceptance. That's one thing. And secondly, it's also really good to just go through the RCA resource pages and know that if you have any financial issues, if there are any other issues that you have, how the RCA can support you, because we didn't know about all these supports till we were already halfway through the course, and we only accessed them then. And it can make your life really easy, at least knowing that, okay, if anything goes wrong, these things are available to me. There's also career support within the RCA. There is visa immigration support within the RCA, and all these resources kind of just supposed to make your transition more smooth. So one of the things I did before coming to the RCA was also always email any doubts that I had to the student representatives on their personalized chat, but also the RCA itself to clarify any doubts, any documents, stuff like that, and really staying up to date on their website and their social media.
I can say a master's is different from school or work, where you are, let's say, you have tasks and you're requested to follow, certain expectations or deliverables. A master is like a beautiful space where you have a year to explore the things that you're curious about and really see that as a precious time and not feel like you have to rush through it or meet certain external expectation. The master is for you to develop as a person and your skills, but also just look into that curiosity that you have.
Thank you, Lucy.
Yeah, I think I can't agree more than what Louise just say. Just like it's something to plan in advance, like know when you apply, why you apply, but also when you're in the space, uh, regularly question, what's your value, what's your motivation, and like unblock creativity blocks by thinking of why are you here, and like take some time to self-reflect. Although I think most masters now 1 year and it's really fast. But if you have a plan before coming, you also know which workshop you want to go, like in which priority. And then still take time to self-reflect, because obviously tutors haven't like a point of view on what you're doing, but it's still your work. So like you're not doing something to please your tutors, you're doing something to please you. So yeah, reflect and apply, obviously. I mean, if you can afford the cost of application, apply to this master and you will see.
Great, Darsh.
Yeah, I mean, reiterating the same points. I mean, I think everybody covered all the points, but also just the fact that how we were talking about reaching out to other people. I think there's nothing wrong in reaching out. It's also quite interesting to reach out to people that are around you at the RCA. I think Oishi said that, there's a huge like age gap between like students and in terms of experience as well. We also had like students right from 25 years of age right to up to like 65, 70 years of age. So they are also running their independent practices and companies. And a lot of times, you might not know a lot of those things or the connections that you're looking for outside might be available within the university itself. And even if you choose to not do the masters, a lot of these people are quite happy to help even outside, because RC is such an inclusive platform and a college otherwise. So I think all of us are quite happy to answer questions that might be relevant to our practices and just drop an email or drop a message on their Instagram or something like that, and they'd be happy to help. I'm pretty sure.
If I may
Sure.
just quickly add something to that, I think this applies to this is advice for people who would start studies here. So while in RCA, I would say that one very key thing is to be present. That it's impossible to replicate that environment that you're in during your studies. Be in the studio every day, be present, be curious, have discussions with your peer students. That's a resource that you will most likely never get a chance to have again, depending on the course within your own course, but not to mention the whole college. It's such a valuable resource that that's something that we always push our students to always be present, even if you're doing your own research, but be surrounded by your peers and take the most out of it rather than working remotely and just visiting when you're being told to.
Perfect. Great advice. Thank you so much. And whoever was wondering, the session is recorded. We're going to follow up with you with the recording and also some key information about deadline and upcoming events. So really wanted to thank you all for your time for this very much interesting conversation. And we look forward to seeing you soon at the next live webinar with Royal College of Art. And as they said, like the team is very much approachable, so make the most out of those events and reach out to the team in case you have any further questions. So thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.